I'm sorry. Excuse me. Hey, what's up, everybody? Coming to you today with another boxing award, 2020 Boxing Award. This is the final one of the year for the year 2020, and this one is the biggest award, which is Fighter of the Year. I'm going to mention my top 5 fighters of the year, and, that's it. So if you like the channel, guys, or if you like my videos, hit the thumbs up, hit the thumbs down if you don't. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. I appreciate any love I can get. Remember, that's true boxing. Okay, so now my criteria for Fighter of the Year. A lot of times one big win separates, people, but whatever else you do in combination absolutely matters, because most fighters fight more than once. So, like, if you fight if you're going against two guys going against one another trying to win the award, not fighting each other, but both got 2 wins over top-notch competition, and then one guy has one over a top 10 guy and the other guy fights a nobody, probably going to lean towards that guy that fought 2 good quality opponents and wins. Well, this year was tough for 2020 because of COVID, and a lot of fighters only fought once. So, 4 of my 5 only fought once. So one win, was basically could have won the year. And we'll see if it did. But yeah, the collection of fights this year wasn't there for most of boxing. There wasn't a lot of guys who got in there and got 2 quality wins in 2020, or 2 wins at all, really. So let's jump in. I'm gonna do an honorable mention first, and that goes to Jovante Davis, the 130-pound super featherweight champion and the 135-pound secondary regular champion. Davis, the reason why he finishes with the honorable mention and right there at the top 5 is because he only had 1 win. He only fought once. He knocked out Leo Santa Cruz brutally in the 6th round of their what was somewhat a unification bout at 130 pounds. I say somewhat of a unification because Davis was moving down from 135 to 130, and Santa Cruz was already at 130, so he forced him to come down. Now, Davis, what was impressive about, not just the knockout was impressive, which most people saw, is there was a lot of pressure on him going into this fight, because Davis had really not been disciplined when it came to getting in shape. He missed weight a couple times at 130 and dropped, actually lost one of the titles on the scales from missing weight, his first world title at 130. So, and then when he moved up to 135 for his secondary title fight against Yuriorkis Gamboa, he came in overweight for that fight and had to go shed the weight. So, discipline and training was a big question, and if he could come back down to 130 and actually get in shape and be successful there. I really questioned that, and I thought it was going to be a very good action fight against Santa Cruz, even though I did favor Davis to win the fight because he was the bigger man. But, Davis came in great shape, and he took on a very tough Leo Santa Cruz, who's never been knocked out or even hurt. And he kept pressuring him. Santa Cruz did well. He boxed him off well, and I thought did well in this fight. But Davis just proved how good he really is and can be. Headlining a Showtime pay-per-view for his first time, and he laid out Leo Santa Cruz, and that's how you perform if you're going to be a big name right there. You come out and you get a victory like that. Huge win for Jovante Davis, and he's an honorable mention. Now, number 5 is the only guy with 2 fights on this list, and that is light heavyweight contender, former world title challenger, Joe Smith Jr. At 175 entering the year, Joe Smith was blank. Nobody was talking about Joe Smith. He was coming off of 2019 where he got his first world title shot against Dimitri Bivol and got his ass whipped in that fight. Pretty much from start to finish. He landed a big punch in the 10th round that seemed to stun Bivol, but Bivol weathered the storm, and he dominated Joe Smith during the championship rounds. And to be honest, if that fight goes an extra 30 seconds to another minute, Bivol might put Joe Smith down. I mean, it really was a one-sided fight. So, entering 2020, Joe Smith was lined up in January of 2020 to take on Jesse Hart, a former two-time world title challenger at a super middleweight. Jesse Hart in 2019 had moved up to light heavy and got a big win over Sullivan Barrera. So Jesse Hart was looking good. He really was. And he was fighting pretty much in his hometown of Philadelphia when he took on Joe Smith. And Joe Smith was just looking like that seasoned, former world title challenger. And Jesse Hart was a considerable favorite coming in. And Joe Smith just bullied Jesse Hart around the ring, really did from start to finish. Just kept coming forward, kept pounding on Jesse Hart. And the fight went to the scorecards and was shockingly scored a split decision, but it went in favor of the rightful winner, which was Joe Smith Jr. It wasn't that close. Joe Smith dominated, but got away with a big win. And that actually led to a final eliminator. He lucked out because Gilberto Ramirez was having promotional issues with Top Rank and could not join their four-man tournament. So he was substituted in based off his win against Jesse Hart, and he went after Eliter Alvarez, a former champion, and the favorite to win the four-man box-off. So, because they set up a four-man box-off to declare the next WBO light heavyweight champ. So, Joe Smith, a big opportunity against Alvarez, but another one. He came in a sizable underdog. Nobody really thought that he was going to be able to hurt and beat up Eliter Alvarez. Alvarez just a very good boxer and can hit very hard as well. He has a great overhand right. And I really thought he was going to stop Joe Smith in the late rounds or win a one-sided decision. And another one, Joe Smith just came out smoking, man. He looked good in this fight. Absolutely dominated Eliter Alvarez from start to finish and beat him up. And in the 9th round, put him through the ropes, knocking him out, and became, a mandatory #1 contender at the WBO title. And that was just huge. 2 big wins against 2 top 10 guys. Eliter Alvarez was a top 5 at the time. I believe he was a top 3 light heavyweight. And it shot Joe Smith just straight up the rankings. I mean, he went from nothing at the beginning of the year, not in the top 10, to I think I have him at number 3 now in the light heavyweight division. And he has a world title shot waiting for him on February 13th. So Joe Smith really, really took advantage of the opportunities he had in 2020 and fought great, and definitely deserves to be on this list for Fighter of the Year. Now, number 4 is the undefeated and unified welterweight champion of the world, Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence entered the year still kind of going neck and neck with Terrence Crawford, but he was coming off of a bad car accident at the end of in October of 2019, and people wanted to see how he was going to return, and he postponed the possible showdown with Danny Garcia early in the year so he could recover from the injuries he suffered in that crash. But none of them were considered major, but people just wanted to see where his head was at, if he was going to come in shape. And Danny Garcia seemed to be a very adequate and tough opponent for him in his comeback fight, which ended up being a 14-month layoff in between. But, man, did Errol Spence come out firing on all cylinders. He dominated Danny Garcia from start to finish and scored a one-sided 12-round unanimous decision to retain his unified championship. Big-time win. Beating a guy like Danny, who I had 6th at welterweight at the time, is the equivalent of beating a guy in the top 3 or 4 in any other division. Welterweight is so good, and that was a huge win. And it pulled Errol Spence ahead of Terrence Crawford at 147. So that was a monster win right there. Number 3 is unified super middleweight champion and pound-for-pound king, Canelo Alvarez. He only fought once. He took on Callum Smith in December and became the unified super middleweight champion with a one-sided shutout 12-round unanimous decision over Smith. I mean, absolutely dominated Callum Smith in this one. Smith, 7 inches taller, way longer. A lot of people thought that was going to pose a threat to Canelo, and Canelo just kept coming at him, jabbing, and then working his way from body to head, and just teed off on Callum Smith, who just seemed afraid to throw back because he was afraid of getting hit in return. And he just got dominated in this fight. He tried for a little bit there, but really Canelo took his heart. It was a huge win. You know, Callum Smith was the top guy at 168, and Canelo went in there and took his heart and captured the vacant WBC title and took Callum Smith's WBA super title. He now holds 2 of the 4 belts. He's making a run to get in the ring with Billy Joe Saunders in May after a mandatory title defense against Anthony Yildirim, and then it's looking like undisputed in September with Caleb Plant. So we'll see. But Canelo Alvarez, number 3. Finishing the year, number 2 for Fighter of the Year, and this was close, but this one goes to the undefeated and undisputed lightweight champion of the world, Teofimo Lopez. He only fought once in 2020, where he scored a monster upset 12-round unanimous decision over Vasily Lomachenko as he became the undisputed lightweight champion with that victory. I mean, he was only the 5th man in history since the 4-belt era, which is since the 1990s, so 30 years almost. We've had 4 belts governing the world of boxing, major belts, and this was only the 5th time in that near 30-year run that we saw an undisputed champion in a weight class. And Lopez came out, you know, just a big underdog, and he boxed, and, you know, he did not go in there with his chin exposed and handing the fight to Lomachenko. He made Lomachenko come to him. Lomachenko was hesitant to throw, and you know, it was detrimental. It cost him, and yeah. So you know, then he weathered the 8 rounds 8 through 11 when when Lopez started coming on strong, and when Lomachenko started coming on strong, he weathered that, and he fought a fantastic 12th round. He went out there and fought like he had to win, and it was a huge win right there to be one of the top 2 pound-for-pound fighters in the world. Some people argued him for number 1. To beat him at all, great win, and Lopez is now the undisputed champion at 135. You could very easily argue him for Fighter of the Year, but he just missed out. I'll explain why. Because number 1 is the undefeated and newly crowned WBC heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury. He is my 2020 Fighter of the Year. He only fought once. He fought Deontay Wilder in a rematch in February of 2020, and he absolutely dominated Deontay Wilder. Totally picked him apart. He stepped inside of his power. Instead of letting Wilder get long, he forced Wilder to have to try to throw short shots, but he got in his chest and got in his face and roughed up and beat up Deontay Wilder, whipping his ass, finally stopping him in the 7th round of that fight as he captured the world title. Big time win for Tyson Fury. And yeah, you know, that was huge. That was just a huge win. He didn't fight the rest of the year, but what made me pick that win over Teofimo Lopez, because Lopez was the Fighter of the Year to a lot of people. For me, it was because, you know, not just he became number 1. I think it was because the result, the one-sided result of the fight. You know, Lopez barely beat Lomachenko, barely, and he was the bigger man too. Size did matter in that fight, in my opinion. But Fury, he was a bigger man, but it's at heavyweight. Again, and it was a rematch against the number 1 heavyweight in the world with dynamite in both hands. And it wasn't close. He went in there and dominated Deontay Wilder and took his heart. That, to me, was just a slight bit bigger than Lomachenko and Lopez. So, Tyson Fury, my 2020 Fighter of the Year and the heavyweight champion. And that is the last boxing award, guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys check it out. Show some love. Thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe, leave a comment. I appreciate all of it, and I appreciate you. So, true boxing, you've been hit with the truth.